rare do we get to have short stories be the star of the show. I think we should card more meetings for just our short story writers. So I hope that we have enough time today to get everyone. And Mutilal, I'll hand over to you. So just remember to do the welcome, even though we've already started.
Okay, thank you, Gusha, and welcome everybody. And two things. Willard would not be with us today. Something came up. So if you have time, I will read Willard's piece. And I want to ask Shivana if she has something she would share with us today. Shivana?
I don't have anything prepared today because I did see that it was a short story forum, and I am more, although I've written a reading book, I'm a retired educator principal. I am more of a poet. I did do a short story once that I entered into the, the Commonwealth competition, and but I find it something that I don't love as much as I love my poetry. But thank you for asking.
No, no problem. You could always share your poetry. We usually have a open mic at once a month, so you could do that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving right along, we'll start today with Heather, and she will be doing Saraswati transformation. Take it away, Heather.
Thank you, Motilal. Saraswati's transformation. I said this in Penal, Moti, just for you.
I hear you loud and clear.
Saraswati was the envy of the vendors at the Penal market. Her stall was fixed up nice. A frustrated artist at heart, she had grown up too poor to pay for art lessons. But her flair for design made her stall a focal point for market goers every Saturday. Midweek, Saraswati went to San Fernando to buy cloth from a wholesaler to sell locally, adding a few dollars per yard so she could make a small profit. She did so well at displays, her sales were impressive, pulling in enough for her to put a little savings aside. Saraswati she also had a penchant for words, and this she applied to her displays. Her carefully rolled out fabrics, bunched up into luscious knots with trailing drapery, carried written descriptions such as cloud cream taffeta, pomerac red percale, pink morning sunlight seersucker, and cocoa tea brown gabardine. Not only were these fabrics a feast for the senses of sight and touch, their descriptions conjured up exquisite imaginings. Girl, look how that sour cherry green making your skin glow, Saraswati would say. You go be the queen of the Fete Friday night. And so the sale was a done deal. To her displays, Saraswati added a small lock case with gold jewelry, earrings, chains, and bracelets to augment her fabrics. Look how nice those gold earrings looking with that poinsettia burgundy satin, girl. You could be the belle of the ball at the Christmas party, Saraswati would say, and she would wrap up the earrings with the cloth. Next thing, Saraswati added small makeup items, face powder, nail polish, and lipsticks. By providing a one-stop shopping experience for ladies at the market, she slowly expanded her array of goods and built up her savings too. Why make an extra trip to the drugstore for cosmetics? She would tell her customers. Look, this lipstick will match your orange peel silk dress length perfectly. And see how this gold chain looking so expensive with the cloth. You could be the talk of the town at the next block party. And she would make another sale of not just one, but two or three items. She was sales lady supreme. Then one day, dry so, Saraswati left the market. Her fellow vendors were surprised. Where all you think she gone? They questioned. Maybe a bigger market in San Fernando or Port of Spain, they speculated. Some even inquired at Raghunan and traced where she lived, only to be told she had moved, but nobody knew where she had gone. Other vendors didn't care. I never liked, she said one lady. She always acting like she better than the rest of we. You know, never see come see. Saraswati's stall was quickly occupied and eventually nobody thought about her at all. What had happened was that one Wednesday when Saraswati had gone to San Fernando to visit the cloth wholesaler, she met a white man there. He was one Mr. McClintock. He was looking at cloth for uniforms for his oil company office employees. Saraswati had sailed into the shop looking stunning in a pooey yellow sundress with gold earrings and bangles. And just as the man was asking the wholesaler what colors to choose, she spoke up. I think the toffee beige for a shirt would go nice with the chocolate mocha pants. She piped up with her dazzling smile. The man was impressed. He bought all the cloth lengths and he asked her out for lunch on the spot. What followed was a whirlwind romance. The white man was so taken with Saraswati, it was like he was under a spell. Something about her attention to detail in the way she carried herself and her use of words formed a deep attraction to her on the man's part. For her, it was the novelty of having a white man with enough money to give her a posh lifestyle. Whatever the reasons were for the qualities which brought them together, they decided to tie the knot sooner rather than later. Matters progressed so quickly between the both of them that before long, Saraswati went back to the wholesaler to buy cloth for her wedding dress. She chose an icy white chiffon over taffeta with Venetian lace trim, accented with seed pearls and crystal beads. She looked simply stunning on her wedding day. The couple then went to live at the white man's huge house on Mayaro Beach, close to the oil company's offices, which overlooked offshore drilling in the Atlantic Ocean. There, Saraswati lived the high life with all the perks of being the local doyenne. Her flair for arrangement in dress and decor and her way with words made her the hit of the social scene among the other wives of the office employees. And Saraswati even went on to head up the ladies' club. Then, one Saturday, she and her white husband were invited to the Southern Oil Field party near Siparia. They drove down in their Chevrolet, coming to a traffic jam right by Pimal Market, where she once had a stall. While the car was at a standstill, some vendors recognized her and called out, Saraswati, is you girl? They ran up to the car to greet her. Hey, you have big car now, they said. Saraswati was dressed in a lime green blouse with a fashionable matching scarf. She lifted her shades ever so slightly, shook her now auburn hair with blonde highlights, and spoke with a faint foreign accent. Saraswati, who? I am Sarah Wendy McClintock. Just then the traffic jam cleared and the big car drove off with screeching tires, leaving the vendors in the dust with their jaws dropped right down to the ground. So she gone from Saraswati to Sarah Wendy, one of them said. Poor great, another one said. Man, I remember when she was just a little barefoot girl in Ragunan and Trace. But look how she come big white lady now. Left she there. It ain't go end good. You know what they say? One day, Congo Tay. At the end.
Yeah, thank you very much, Heather. I could relate to that story because I used to be selling in the market with my mother in Pinal Market. We used to sell cloth, we used to sell ready-made clothes, we used to sell all kind of little jewelry, of course not gold jewelry, but the other type, and we used to sell cosmetics too. I remember Pond's V and C cream and all that. So thanks very much, and I wish Saraswati all the best. So moving along, as I said, Willard would not be here, so we ask Alicia to tell us a bit about her book, a little bit about her book, and read her story, Don't Go by the River. Take it away, Alicia.
Hi, good day. Could you all hear me? Hi, good day. Could you all hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So this is my book here. It's called Terrifying Tales from Trinidad and Tobago. And it is available on Amazon. I also have some hard copies as well. Um, his call is the first story in the book. It's 11 short stories. fiction and based around Trinidad folklore and the supernatural. However, it's the story is not really written like the typical folklore stories you would read about. Um, is definitely not for children because some of these situations are a little adult. So I would say like 16 and over, is the age I would recommend. Because like I my school library, I didn't really advertise the book because the children, I don't want the children to feel that is something that kids could read because it's not. Um, Somebody sent a message. Okay, so all right. Well, what happened is the story I'm going to read is called "Don't Go by the River." Okay, and oops, excuse. Here goes. Fish must be gone in that forest about 100 times. He know that forest like the back of his hand. Don't hot up your head now. Jikes was always confident in Vishal's knowledge. It's true Vishal did know everything about the forest, but he said he would return home at 5 p.m. It was 7 and the sun had departed, leaving a small slip of the last quarter, moon and Venus in the dim sky. It was never like this to be late. He would always leave the river at a suitable hour so that he arrived home on time. He always had his treasured smartwatch fully charged and on his wrist. Vish was very conscientious about time. I sat at the kitchen table pondering when suddenly something caught my eye. I rushed to the kitchen counter near the toaster oven. "What?" asked James. Vish forget he bottle of punch. It was a tiny bottle, just a nip. Vish didn't drink alcohol, but he always carried a nip to offer to the river. His grandfather taught him to show reverence for the river as well as the spirits that dwell there. We were land creatures going into their territory, so we have to show our respect. Look, Anu, if he don't come back by the next morning, we could call the police. That's so late. Jikes left and I locked up. I called Vish's number, no answer. The phone went straight to voicemail, which meant that the phone was off. I called the police. Madam, so much woman all over the place. You sure here run away? I don't think so. I heard roars of laughter in the phone, over the phone in the background. If he come back in 24 hours, call me. Before he utter another way, the call ended. I switched on the television and a story caught my attention. A group of hikers went to a river up north and the men went missing. Only the men. Fish, please come home. I awoke after a restless night. I had checked my phone. He hadn't called. I called his phone, only voicemail. My phone rang. It was my sister, Asha. Asha, Fish missing. You here come home yesterday. I called in to tell you Johnny went fishing and I come back. He gone since yesterday. Asha only lived 100 feet away from me. Johnny, her husband, was another outdoor fanatic. They had two children, Mira and Kurt. Sorry. Mira was 15 years old and already decided she wanted to be a veterinarian. Kurt was 17 years old, tall and well built. He liked the outdoors too, but was studying and did not go with his father yesterday. Asha came with the children. We all decided that we would go and look for the men. There was a well-defined trail in the forest which led to the river. I tried to hope for the best. Vish and Johnny were experts in outdoor activities. I doubt the worst had happened to them. As we hiked through the forest, we were all silent. It was hard to converse, especially when we had to keep our senses alert. Every moment in the forest evoked paranoia. We summoned all of our energies to remain composed. Mommy, look! Nira pointed to a fluorescent orange object. It was Vish's phone. I hurriedly plugged in the power bank that I bought. When it gained some charge, then I would check the phone. We walked for about 3 to 5 minutes. Then we arrived at the river. It was wide and appeared fathomless. Its dark waters were still. Across the river was an even darker and more sinister looking deeper forest. I heard numerous superstitions about that area. There was talk about people who entered but never returned. As I walked along the bank, something familiar caught my eye. I sped towards the object. It was Fisher's clothes. Fisher's clothes, were placed at the bank. His fishing equipment, his knapsack, his smartwatch, and his shoes were all here. Fish! Fish! I shouted. No answer, no sign of him. I felt a deep despair in my chest. Where could he have gone? Swimming? Fish himself told me that the river housed large pronounced wheel, snakes or anacondas. They were inclined to drag unsuspecting swimmers into the deep. Superstition said that if you had a twig, you were to break it. The sound would be similar to a bone being broken. When the snake heard that, they would assume that they broke one of the victim's bones and would release their suffocating grip. This gave the victim a chance to escape. Did Vish go swimming? Why else would he leave all his clothes? I turned on his phone and looked for the pictures and videos. I tapped the most recent one. Vish was holding the phone and talking about how excited he was to go fishing. Suddenly, his face became expressionless. His eyes seemed to stare at something ahead, and the phone fell. There were a few seconds of forest trees. Then the video ended. Vish did not look scared or shocked. He seemed to be in a daze. What kind of sorcery would drive a man to drop everything, including his clothes and his smartwatch too? Suddenly, I heard a faint cry. Sorry, and the phone blacked out. Kurt, screamed Nira. We saw Kurt walking in the water, still fully clothed. We ran behind him and grabbed his arms. He totally ignored us. Asha screamed expletives. Something in the water, I yelled. There was something moving. We tried to pull Kurt, but we couldn't get him out of the river. A towering female form emerged. Her eyes were flaming red. She had long red hair, bony fingers, and below her waist was scale. I stood in front of Kate, but this creature slapped me and sent me tumbling into the water. I felt numerous hands pull me out. By the time I emerged from the river, Kate was gone. Earlier, I feel it's better we tell the police, I suggested. Everyone nodded. That is a mermaid? Asked Mira. Yes, I replied. I taught them thing only in storybook, said Asha in a deal. Poor Asha, she was losing her husband and now her son. The mermaid grabbed him and take him in the water. Asha was sobbing. What caused Kurt to enter the water? Why did he behave as though he was in a trance? It couldn't be sound because when the mermaid was approaching, I heard nothing from her. It wasn't touch or odor. Could it be telepathy? Could it be that the mermaids communicated with the men in such a way as to imprison their minds? Another thing, men didn't live in water, and Mermaids couldn't live on land. How would the two be compatible? I recall the creature's sharp blow that sent me flying. This mermaid had a human face and torso, but there were also fangs at her mouth and scales below her waist. She swam at a terrifying speed. According to our local folklore, mermaids were notorious for taking men and drowning them. We called the police, but all they did was giggle. They even thought we were prank calling. They asked us if we had any videos, and I explained that we were busy in the water trying to prevent our relative from getting trapped. The police said they would visit, but they did not believe our story. And if they found any evidence that we were behind the disappearances, they would take action. Asha, we can't depend on anybody. Nobody will believe we unless we could get a video. And the next thing the police might think is we. How could we get a video? The mermaids would not appear unless a man was around. Who could we ask? How come the mermaid didn't drown first or would they think them in prison? I want to look for my husband, and Asha and Mira wanted to look for Johnny and Cliff. We decided we would take our chances and go into the forest. We started by the river and trekked through the forest, ensuring that we followed the river's course. We had been walking for an hour when suddenly we heard voices. I never heard such gorgeous singing. I motioned to the other ladies to stay quiet. The voices grew louder. We hid behind a huge tree. There was a lady holding a baby, and she was naked. Her skin was smooth, and she had long reddish hair. I saw a man approach. That man was my husband, Bish. He sat next to the lady and kissed her. He then took the baby in his arms. I felt a pang of agony in my chest. So that was his baby. He slept with that lady. Suddenly, the lady went to the water's edge. She sat on the bank and placed her legs in the water. Before our eyes, her legs transformed into a fishtail. I quickly got out my phone, but to my surprise, it was off. I had charged the phone this morning, but for some reason, the phone wasn't coming on. The mermaid rolled into the water. Rish was smiling and holding the baby. Fish, fish, I whispered. He didn't seem to hear. Asha and Nira shook their heads. I ventured from behind the tree. Fish is me, I spoke up. Fish looked up and his smile faded. What are you doing here? Look, get out, he said harshly. Fish, them woman is mermaids, you afraid? He walked up to me with the baby. I like it here and me are going away. Suddenly, I heard a deafening, high-pitched scream. When I looked towards the river, the mermaid had turned. She ran towards Fish and took the baby from him. She ran back to the water's edge. Fish followed her. Babe, where you going? He cried. She jumped into the water with the baby. Fish got into the water. The mermaid looked at me and screamed again. Fish walked deeper and deeper into the river. Anu, let we go. We don't know if them other mermaids come. Next thing they kill me. I didn't want to leave. Sorry. Vish, I sobbed. Leave him. He long gone. Nira and Asha grabbed my arms and pulled me. We all ran as fast as our legs could carry us. We arrived at where we started and walked out of the forest and back to my home. For the next week, there were several news reports of men turning up dead near rivers. Nobody mentioned movies, and that's the end of the story. And well, I have a little illustration here, uh, that came with the story. Thanks for listening.
Very interesting story.
Thank you, Alicia, for that story. We are accustomed with this Disneyland type of mermaids. So it's good that you bring us back to reality, because the origin of the mermaids story goes back to Greek literature, to the sirens who used to sing so beautifully and lure the sailors to their death. So thank you again. And before you go, Alisa, can you tell us about your different publications and let us know where they are available.
Okay, well, the first book I wrote was it is called The Magic of Aripo Savannas, and it is non-fiction. It's about the Aripo Savannah Scientific Reserve. I notice whenever I tell people about the Aripo Savannah, the first thing people would ask me is, "Oh, you're talking about the heights of Aripo," and I would have to explain, no, that's something totally different. And like when I was growing up, I never really saw any like literature available to the public on just Aripo savannas alone. So that is why I decided to write a book about it. It's available on Amazon, but I have a few hard copies. Um, the cost of a book is 130 TT, and it comes with colored photos and some information about the Aripo Savannah and my experience going on hikes there and so on. So it's children friendly. Children like 12 years and over could read it, and that was my first book. And well, this book I just read from, that's my second book. I have a couple of other projects I'm working on that I hope to publish in the near future. One is a book about Cedrus because there's a lot of history down there that people not aware of. And I'm also working on a fiction novel. It has to do with a town, a village in Trinidad where at night people have a lot of supernatural experiences. So I'm not finished with either. And with the Cedrus Carcass book, it's it's a lot of information to gather. So it take a little while, but we visited almost every year. I always visit Cedrus and Carcass. So I'm hoping to publish a book about it soon.
Okay, thank you again, Alisa. And if you follow Alisa's page, Alisa is also known as the geography poet. She's a teacher at the Naparima Boys College, and she always taking these fellows to Cedrus and hikes and all these secluded beaches and areas. That's her passion, hiking. So I encourage everybody to, if they want to go on Alisa page, the geography poet, and you will see what Alisa is all about. Okay, well, moving right along, Willard Gopal was supposed to read a story called Cotton Length. So Willard is not here. Actually, it's one of my short stories from my book here, Naya Kahani, and it's called Cotton Length. So I will read Cotton Length because we are now in the Lenten season. So I thought this would have been appropriate. Growing up in Suchitres Pinal meant to attend the Suchitres Hindu School. As the other schools, the Pinal Government School was 2 miles away, the Pinal Presbyterian 5 miles away, and the Debe Presbyterian 5 miles away. Some of our parents may have attended Debe Pres, which was one of the earliest and then the only school in the area. Walking to school without shoes, especially along the train line, was painful, with the shiny stones beneath the wooden sleepers hurting the sole of your feet. To avoid this, you had to stretch your legs from sleeper to sleeper. Now, at school, we prayed 4 times a day: morning prayer, prayer before lunch, prayer after lunch, and prayer before dismissal in the afternoon. These prayers were in Hindi, and we did not know their meaning, yet we all had to learn them by heart, as well as the various bhajans we sang at assembly in the morning. We lined up in 5 groups called houses, which were named after local birds: kiskidi, blue jay, dove, parakeet, and blackbird. Smallest one in front and the tallest in the back. We would hold out our hands for nail inspection and receive a quick smack with a ruler on the fingers for dirty or long nails. Coconut oil kept our hair neatly combed and our face, legs, and arms shiny. As we grew up in a Hindu home and attending Hindu school, we knew little about other religions. What we learned about Christianity was limited to the Jehovah Witnesses that came to our house about once a month, gave us Awake and Watchtower magazines, which was a bit difficult for a 10-year-old to read, much less understand. Our mothers would stay inside as we told them she was not at home, and they would leave us after giving us a talk about the true living God. In addition, we sometimes attended Sunday school in Mohes Road with Miss Lalu, who had converted to Christianity. She worked at the Woolworth store in San Fernando, the only woman in the village who had a job, and would give us tracts and snacks, mostly sweets she brought home from work. Her two daughters, very well dressed and about our age, used to teach us, although most of us were brighter than them at school. Easter and Lent was special because we got extra sweets and even chocolate. I suppose our parents were glad to have us go to Sunday school so that they could have some peace and quiet in the evening. We went mostly for the sweets and the chocolates. From home, two things we knew about Lent. One was the Good Friday tradition that involved a common fowl egg and a glass of water. On the morning, you were supposed to place the egg white in a glass of water and place it outside your home in the sun. At noon, you would check the glass, and the egg white was supposed to transform into a shape to tell you what would happen in the coming year. If the egg white took the shape of a church, you would have a year of blessings or get married. If it changed into a boat or a plane, you spend the year traveling. I have never heard of anyone whose egg white turned into a coffin, as you can well imagine what would that mean. You were not to bathe in the sea on Good Friday for fear of turning into a fish. The other thing was cutting Lent. This was an agreement with one or more persons to abstain from doing something during the Lenten season. To do this, two persons would bend their right little finger and hook up with one another. A pledge is then made not to do something during Lent. A third person then, with the bottom of an open palm, cuts the joined fingers. Promises could be not eating meat, not smoking or drinking for big people, not cussing, not singing calypso, not running in the schoolyard, not fighting or quarreling or reading comics or coming to school late for children. If these promises were broken, the offender was tapped in the back of his head by all those he had cut Lent with until he shouted Lent, and then the tapping stopped. Cutting Lent was a fun thing to do. As children, we enjoyed catching out our friends breaking Lent. Most of the times, the taps were soft, but sometimes, when students did not like each other, the taps were more severe, and the teachers warned us about cutting Lent. Now, Ramnath was a quiet boy who did not have any friends. He was pale and very bright and always did his school work well. He was the teacher's pet who would be the one to cut the guava whips, and we were regularly treated to, why you can't be more like Ramnath by our teachers. We did not like him and mostly ignored him, but not Jagai, the class bully. Even before Lent, Jagai would tap Ramnath, steal his roti lunch, and just happened to run into him, bumped him down when we played football or was just running during our breaks. We were all afraid of Jagai, so we pretended not to see. While most of us While most of the class had cut length with other pupils, Ramnath did not take part. One lunchtime, Jagai was tapping Ramnath viciously, pretending he had cut length with him. Ramnath was crying and shouting that he did not cut length. All right, length, he sobbed as Jagai stopped. All of a sudden, Ramnath pulled something from his pocket. It was a razor blade that he used to sharpen pencils and cut his nails. Suddenly, Jagai's shirt became red. He screamed as the teachers separated them. Jagai went to the first aid bay and Ramnath to the headmaster's office. Luckily, the cuts were not deep. Jagai received plasters and ointment and a strong warning about bullying. He never harassed Ramnath again. Ramnath received licks. At the after-lunch school assembly, the headmaster addressed the school. Cutting length was banned. Anyone caught doing so will be punished and have to bring their parents to school. Breaks and playtime became quieter. Jagai never bullied anyone again, and there was no cutting length, at least not until the following year. As I close, I wish to say that no matter what your religion, Lent is for everyone. Reflect, re-choose, and reshape your future with good choices for yourself as you pledge to give up at least one negative habit to Lent. Thank you.
Thank you, Motilal.
Okay. All right. Any comments? Anybody want to add anything?
That story actually took me back to many of the things that I saw done in my childhood. Yeah, I think I would have told you all before. I did attend a Hindu school as a child. I went to Five Rivers Hindu, Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha, and that would have been my early education. So that whole issue of bhajans and prayers and that kind of thing is something I can identify with. It's only when you read the story about that egg white in the I remember that as well. I remember that with my mom and some other people in the village who used to do that. They actually, you know, did that and they said, oh, it could tell your future, what will happen, that kind of thing. So that story there, Mutilal brought back a whole range of childhood memories, which were very good memories actually.
Thank you, Alicia. I think you're revealing your age,
Yes.
Any other comment?
Mr. Buru Singh, for me as well. My mother taught in the 60s JB Hindu. And I think she was just telling me Ramai Trace, and as a product of a Mahasabha school and as a principal as well as on my children, it just resonated very deeply with me and brought back a lot of memories as well. And I do think we appreciate the Lenten season. Speaking to my friends last week, we decided what we were going to give up, sacrifice, abstain from, and up to last year, I did that egg white and water, but I never see anything of value, But thank you for your contribution. It was lovely.
Okay. Cynthia, you remember anything about long time Lent girl? Okay, well, moving right along, we have two more items, and the last item we wouldn't be recording because I think Arlene have her reasons. I think it's some copyright reason. But before that, we have another story. Again, I'm going to overburden, but I say we have time. And if anybody do have anything to contribute at this time, I have a story here called The Mic Men of Pinal I would like to read. Okay, let me see this one. Okay, all right, just a minute. I must see if I could highlight myself here. All right, so this is another humorous story again. This is a story of yesteryear, and it's called the Mic Men of Pinal. And again, some of us older people might be able to relate. A mic man is one who plays music or broadcasts notices from a car with loudspeakers, that is mics fitted on the top. Nowadays, they are mostly used to announce sales, village activities such as sport days, religious observances, yagnas, church services, political meetings, and death announcements. Mic men were not too long ago an essential part of the entertainment at parties, weddings, and village bazaars and political meetings. They have now been replaced by big music trucks and DJs. Once popular and prestigious, they have fallen on lean times, and the craft is now practiced by few older men clinging on to a tradition and trying to preserve a dying art. Growing up in the 50s and the 60s, the mic men I knew were the saga boys of that era, and many little boys, including me, wanted to be a mic man when they grew up. No, becoming a mic man was not a simple process of buying mic equipment and starting to play music. One must acquire a wind-up gramophone, amplifier, records, mics, and loudspeakers, with usually a spare of each, as the technology was not as advanced as now, and breakdowns would occur frequently. And no mic man worth his salt wanted his reputation damaged, as this could affect his ability to get jobs. Of course, he must also be versed in Indian music. He'd also need a car, as many jobs were mobile, such as um, what they call carrying weddings, leading the wedding processions. Since many villages in Pinal did not have electricity, the sound system was powered by car batteries, and most mic men carried a spare batteries, preferably the larger truck battery, especially when they played music at farewells, that is, night before weddings, where they played for long hours. Also, because they were many times mobile, like when they were making announcements or leading wedding processions, extra battery power was needed. The driver sat in front, while the mic man sat in the back, attending to winding up the gramophone, playing records, and making announcements as required. Because weddings and functions such as yagnas and hagwats, those 7 night prayers, were the majority of the occasions when the mic men were required, the profession was seen to be somewhat sacred, and many mic men were vegetarians, some even sadhus, although there were many others who were drunkards and adulterers, as their activities gave them access to wine, women, and song. In those days, when buying a car, one took it to the pundit to be blessed. To be doubly sure, some would also take it to Mount St. Benedict to be doubly blessed. It was not uncommon to see a mala, that is a string of Hindu prayer beads, as well as a St. Christopher medallion hanging from the car's rearview mirror. Similarly, one had to bless the mic. While I'm not aware of any blessings done at the mount, I know of blessings done by Sidhu Sadhu, who made murtis for the Ganesh Yagnas, as well as doing the paintings at the temple. He also held Hindi lessons and taught bhajans at his home and at the mandir. Now, the blessing of a mic would involve giving it a name, much like the name giving ceremony, the Nam Sanskar for a newborn baby. Sidhu Sadhu placed mango wood soaked in ghee in a hawan kund, that's a brass receptacle used in puja, and lit the same. While the holy fire is burning, Sidhu would consult his holy books and choose an appropriate name. He then sprinkled a few drops of water onto the funnel of the mic and announced the name. An artist in his own right, Sidhu would then paint the name of the mic inside the funnel. In an earlier time, this was done in Hindi. In my young days, the words were in English so that we could read them. Some of the mics carried names of popular Indian movies of the time, like Nagin, Awara, Dili Nadan, and Sagar, while those from Suchitrace and Gopitrace, where I live, were called Hurricane, Thunderstorm, Cyclone, and Tufan, that's Hindi for storm. As a boy, I thought that these names were appropriate as the quality of the sound was measured by its loudness. As I grew older, I wondered if Sidhu Sadhu really got those names from the holy books or if he was simply being mischievous. The mic men usually played the songs from the Indian movies of the day. Thus, the names of the mic reflected this. Many orchestras evolved from mic men. I have been told that the popular Dilina Dan of today was originally led by a mic man. The Choti Sagar also comes to mind. As more mic men entered the profession, the competition became fierce. They tried to outdo each other by playing the latest records and having the loudest sound system. A new trend emerged with Sidhu now naming the mics to reflect volume. Let me tell you a few anecdotes about some mic men and their mics from my village. When I was at school in Suchitrace, Hindu, I always thought that Ramesh Rupnarayan and Premchand Rupnarayan were brothers. They always stood up for each other. It turned out I was wrong. They were cousins who lived opposite each other in Suchit branch trace. As we grew up to be young men, we went to different jobs. Some in the oil fields, some in the rice fields, some in teaching. Others became clerks, bus conductors, market vendors, postmen, etc. Ramesh and Primchand first worked in their rice and watermelon fields. Ramesh felt that the work was too hard and prevailed upon his father to buy a mic system for him. Sidhu named his system Hurricane. Every evening and on Sunday mornings, before he went to a job, he played loud music with his funnels facing Premchand's house. This led to quarrels between the two previously close families. Soon after, Premchand wanted a mic, and Sidhu named his Thunderstorm. Intense competition became the norm, leading to angry confrontations, with both mics facing each other, causing a relentless din. While the words or music of the song could no longer be heard, Sidhu intervened before violence could have erupted, and both sides agreed to play their music, one on mornings, the other on evenings, and both on alternate Sundays. The owner of Cyclone, the Gopals, lived a few houses from me. Eldest brother Budram was a cinema operator as well as an announcer. I can still remember his voice. calling attention to all cinema fans. This is the voice of the Regent Cinema in Pinal, now showing at 4:30 and 8:30. The greatest story ever told, the blockbuster, The Ten Commandments, starring Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner. Man, everybody loved that voice. If he had lived in a later time, I'm sure he would have been a radio and TV announcer. The girls love him, and his wife, a most beautiful red Spanish, said she fell in love with that voice. His other brother, Dushan, found his wife while playing in a wedding in St. Augustine, while his smaller brother, Shunkan, eloped with a girl from San Francisco. His last brother told me this story. He said, his last brother, Dean, told me this story. He and Chunkan shared a room and a bed. One night, on returning home from the 8:30 double, he tried to sneak in the darkness without waking Chunkan. As he tried to get on his side of the bed, he felt something. Chunkan, who was a mic man at a Ramayana Yagna, had run away with one of the worshippers. Tufan is Hindi for storm. Murali's mic was named Tufan. He liked Harilal's daughter. Harilal banned his daughter Toy from seeing or talking to Murali. For months, Murali would pass Harilal's house playing the love songs he knew Toy liked. Harilal pelted the mica with stones, mostly missing. One day, Harilal's daughter Toy took some clothes and waited for Murali to pass. He stopped, she jumped in the car and never returned to her parents' home. Just a little note, all these couples are together today, some 50 years later. There are many anecdotes I can tell of Mike Men, but I will do so at another time. Sometimes when I am nostalgic and hear a loudspeaker in the distance, my heart beats faster in anticipation of some great music of yesterday. I become disappointed when my ears are assaulted by the repetitive cries of Bayan Skrapayan ul Batri Bayan, Bayan Skrapayan ul Batri Bayans. Thank you.
I enjoyed that one.
Okay.
It's like one of the recent ones we have nowadays is water, water, come and get it, come and get it. People passing
Yes,
around
yes,
selling.
all these songs sing.
Yes, pass around selling water.
Okay, any other comments? Shivani, we had quite a few mic men from Debe, We had the Nanan brothers. I don't know if you're still here with us. Okay, all right, so that's my offering for today. And Gusha, are you here?
I am. I'm going to go ahead now and end the recording. Thank you, everyone, for
Right, and the
joining
recording
Poetry
so
and
that we
Prose
can
today.
really enjoy. I'm looking
Yes,
forward to Arlene's story.
we're
You know
going
how
to go
long I want to hear Arlene read?
ahead. Just give me 1 minute.